Dear colleagues, dear friends, today we celebrate the great date of the 80th anniversary of the glorious victory of the Soviet people in the Great Patriotic War. Today, we, as employees of the ministry, with the participation of our veterans, with the participation of the youth, must also take an oath to always be faithful to the victories, the feats, the heroism that ensured the life of our state, our motherland, the Soviet Union, which ensured the future and future generations. In those years, many employees of the People's Commissariat of Foreign Affairs, employees, colleagues, outsiders, went to the front with the Red Army soldiers, with the militiamen, defended our capital, our motherland, and made their contribution to this great victory. At the same time, the diplomats who remained at work in the People's Commissariat, together with their colleagues, were providing diplomatic and foreign policy accompaniment to the heroic struggle of the Soviet people for the salvation of Europe from Nazism. They did everything to get and use the information that was intended to strengthen the unity of the anti-Hitler coalition, not to allow the fascists to make separate deals. As you know, there were such attempts. And in general, during the entire war, the diplomats did everything necessary to prevent treason at their posts. And as you know, now these documents are classified, they are being published. We found out quite early on the preparation, first of all, with the participation of the British, of the unthinkable operation, which was really unthinkable, because it was supposed to attack the Soviet Union with the aim of, as it sounds now familiar, with the aim of inflicting a strategic defeat on the Soviet Union. And today that experience, of course, is priceless for us. The experience of establishing a coalition, but exclusively based on one's own interests, without naivety, without excessive trust in empty promises. President Putin spoke in great detail about this very recently in one of his interviews. Now, against us too, they have united under the banner of Nazism, and literally, in the sense of the word, supporting the openly Russian, anti-Russian regime of Zelensky, which is carrying out torch-bearing marches, which is throwing fighters with chevrons of Nazi divisions on their sleeves into the slaughterhouse. And just as in the framework of the unthinkable operation, we are being declared a threat of a strategic defeat on the battlefield. It is very important not only to preserve the memory of the heroes of the Great Patriotic War, the Second World War, who provided us with the future and the current development, and I am sure the development for many decades and centuries to come, but also to remember the diplomatic experience, the diplomatic lessons of those events. These lessons are priceless, including and especially in the current situation when war is being waged against us. Again, almost all of Europe is armed and, as I have already said, under Nazi banners. And these days, for the first time in our country, 80 eternal fires are being lit. There is a tradition of taking a particle of eternal fire to the Alexander Garden. and transferring it to someone's small homeland. But quite recently, such an action was carried out by the inhabitants of Lugansk and a number of other cities. And it is symbolic that this is happening soon after Easter, when the same particle of fire, the fire of grace from Jerusalem, is being spread all over the world, and this bright Sunday is being celebrated.
What excited the Khazars was that Kabbalah preached revolution. It said that Jews, as superior beings, were destined to rule the world. In the Zohar, which is the written text of Kabbalistic lore, we find the arrogance and ambition of the ancient Pharisees very much alive.
In a typical passage, the Zohar teaches, living soul refers to Israel, who have holy living souls from above, and cattle and creeping thing and beasts of the earth to the other peoples who are not living soul. Only by the overthrow of the Gentiles, the Zohar asserts, can Israel regain its position as God's Shekinah glory on earth. The Zohar calls Gentiles Amalekites. In a passage typical of many, the Zohar says they caused the destruction of the temple. So when God reveals himself, they will be wiped off the earth. Redemption will not be complete until Amalek will be exterminated. But once Israel shakes off Gentile dominion and Christian influence, heaven will descend to earth. The Zohar says Israel will fulfill her predestined role, ruling the world under the leadership of her Messiah.
Since the Kabbalah or Zohar was not merely a theological system, but taught the overthrow of the existing order, it was natural that before long Jews should begin to put it into practice. With the age of Voltaire and the so-called Enlightenment during the 18th century, we see a host of Jewish Kabbalists migrating west out of Poland and penetrating the very capitals of Europe. Jewish wonder workers, Baal Shems as they were called, Saint Germain, Cagliostro, Frank, Falk, men of vast wealth and mystery came upon the European scene at the end of the 18th century.
In Europe, in the years preceding the French Revolution, the foundations were laid for a new order in the world. Kabbalists such as Adam Weishaupt helped establish the ultra-secret Illuminati, which became a cover for plots and intrigues that would begin the erosion of Christian civilization. At the same time, beginning with Jewish philosopher Moses Mendelssohn, many Jews began to perceive their religion not simply as a means of personal salvation, but as a way to reform society at large. Many Jewish activists said that, starting with such revolutionaries as Moses and the prophets, Israel had always had the social objective of righting injustice and taking the part of the downtrodden. It was the duty of every Jew, they said, to come to the aid of the oppressed working masses, called the proletariat, in their historic struggle against capitalistic bondage. Many Jews thus came out of the ghetto and took part in all the great revolutions of the 19th century, including the Revolution of 1829 and the Revolution of 1848. It is thus not surprising that as the 20th century dawns, we find Jews turning their attentions to the overthrow of one of the last monarchies still opposing Jewish advancement, the Romanov dynasty of Russia. It is well known that the Jews had long hoped to overthrow the Tsar. It was natural then that Jewish philosophers such as Moses Hess and Karl Marx should contrive a philosophy that could make such overthrow possible. It was also natural that international Jewish bankers of New York, London, and Hamburg should finance it. The U.S. State Department, in its 3-volume report on the origins of communism in Russia, published in 1931, reveals how Jewish-controlled German banks under the leadership of Max Warburg conspired as early as 1914 to send large payments to Lenin, Trotsky, and others in their attempts to bring down the Tsar. As part of this conspiracy, Jacob Schiff, head of the New York Jewish banking house of Kuhn Loeb, invested at least $20 million, which would be close to $1 billion today, toward the establishment of Bolshevism in Russia. In its article on socialism, the Jewish Encyclopedia, published in 1905, freely admits that Jews in Russia were ripe for revolution. In Russia, socialism, has become a movement of the Jewish masses. The later Encyclopedia Judaica tells us the communist movement and ideology played an important part in Jewish life, particularly in the 1920s and 1930s, and during and after World War II. The Judaica, in fact, presents an extensive list of the most powerful Jewish leaders of Bolshevism, which included Trotsky, Sverdlov, Zinoviev, Kamenev, Litvinov, Kaganovich, and many others. The Judaica also tells us just how many Jews filled the communist ranks. It says anti-Semitism drove the bulk of Russian Jewish youth into the ranks of the Bolshevik regime. When the white Russian patriots heroically attempted to regain their freedom from the Jews, the Judaica says compact Jewish masses were utilized by the Bolsheviks to suppress such counter-revolution. Clearly, Jews and native Russians were engaged in a death struggle over the destiny of Russia. Unfortunately, the Jewish masses won. A rare photo shows the First People's Commissariat. From left to right are Uritsky, Trotsky, Zinoviev, Sverdlov, and Kaganovich, all Jewish. In 1918, intelligence services of the Western powers were buzzing with reports that communism was an international conspiracy fomented by atheistic Jews. British, Dutch, American, and other intelligence reports confirmed that Jews filled the Bolshevik ranks and that as much as 75% of all Soviet commissars were Jewish. In the Illustrated Sunday Herald of February 8, 1920, Sir Winston Churchill commented on what had almost become public knowledge. There is no need to exaggerate the part played in the creation of Bolshevism by these international and for the most part atheistical Jews. It is certainly a very great one. In the decades following the revolution, the question became, how much influence do the Jews still exert on the Soviet experiment? Although many of the Jewish kingpins in Bolshevism perished in Stalinist purges in the late 30s, none other than Nikita Khrushchev gives us an eye-opening view of just how many Jews were still in the Soviet government. Speaking to a delegation of French socialists, Khrushchev admitted in 1956 the government has found in some of its departments a heavy concentration of Jewish people, upwards of 50% of the staff. Because communism has historically been top-heavy with Jews, the Soviet policy of so-called anti-Semitism, much protested by Jews in the West, may in reality be but a ploy to distract the world from communism's Jewish past. Although most Jews have indeed been removed from high-profile positions in the Soviet hierarchy over the last 30 years, still Jews remain highly favored when it comes to immigration to the prosperous West. Since World War II, more than 1 million Jews have been allowed to leave the Iron Curtain, sometimes in waves of up to 52,000 a year. This contrasts to the grim reality that if even one Gentile attempts to escape, he would be lucky to receive only 15 years in prison. Jews, then, have played an enormous role in the Soviet experiment. Yet, as the Jewish Encyclopedia, in its article on socialism, again tells us, the passion of many Jews to socialize the world was not confined to Russia. As peddlers of socialism, it tells us, Jews must be reckoned among the pioneers of the socialist parties in America. As a case in point, a flood of socialistic Jews entered the FDR administration and helped pioneer the New Deal for America. The Encyclopedia Judaica says Roosevelt's liberal policies endeared him to the Jewish community, which shared with him an overriding commitment to the welfare state. It is very significant that in letting left-wing Jews into his administration, FDR set in motion a conspiracy that was soon to have the gravest repercussions. As part of his policies, FDR hired a German communist, Klaus Fuchs, a scientific genius who helped mastermind the atomic bomb. Yet Fuchs also headed a ring of 8 highly influential Jews who delivered the entirety of our atomic technology to the Soviet Union in the early 1950s. They included Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, David Greenglass, Harry Gold, Sidney Weinbaum, Morton Sobel, and others. Of the 10 convicted for espionage, no less than 8 were Jewish. Later in 1957, it was discovered that the Jewish Soblin brothers delivered massive defense secrets to the Russians. They acted upon the orders of the Jewish head of the Soviet secret police, Beria. The most recent example of such treachery is the Pollard spy case, in which Jewish spy Jonathan Pollard and his wife delivered thousands of top-secret documents not to Moscow, but to Tel Aviv.
Right, brake left.
During the Vietnam conflict, while American boys died by the tens of thousands, Jews dominated the communist New Left in America. The Encyclopedia Judaica says the New Left included a disproportionate participation of Jews in the leadership and sometimes also in the ranks. It continues, Jews have been active in the United States in all radical movements, socialist and communist, old left and new. On almost every major campus in which the New Left was active, Jews were prominent in the leadership. Typically, they formed between a third to more than half the leadership and members. Jews also dominate the American Civil Liberties Union, a left-wing front which has tirelessly opposed such fundamental values as prayer in the schools, effective criminal prosecution, even the Pledge of Allegiance. The ACLU has been the subject of frequent congressional scrutiny. As early as 1931, a special congressional investigating committee prophetically described a role which has become all too familiar in recent years. It claims to stand for free speech, free press, and free assembly. But it is quite apparent that the main function of the ACLU is to attempt to protect the communists in their advocacy of force and violence to overthrow the government. Today, the ACLU is led by Jewish National Director Ira Glasser, the 5th national director in its history. According to a 1977 ACLU survey of membership, 27.3% of ACLU leaders were Jewish, 21.4% of members. The feminist movement, with its agenda of free abortions and lesbian rights, also contains a lopsided number of Jews in its national leadership. The 3 most influential feminists, Gloria Steinem, Bella Abzug, and Betty Friedan, are Jewish radicals. Jewish producer Norman Lear also heads People for the American Way, the liberal antagonist to Jerry Falwell's Moral Majority. People for the American Way videotapes every broadcast of national TV evangelists in hopes of ruining their ministries. Why does such Jewish-led radicalism prosper? Largely because the television media promotes it. And who owns the media? In its article on television, the Encyclopedia Judaica reveals that the big 3 television networks are Jewish-founded and controlled. David Sarnoff founded NBC in 1926. CBS was founded under the presidency of William S. Paley, also Jewish. ABC was an outgrowth of the NBC network, and another Jew, Leonard Goldenson, became its president. Gentiles usually occupy the visible out-front positions, but each of the 3 networks remain under Jewish influence or control. According to the famous Lichter-Rothman poll of 104 top-level media executives, published in Public Opinion magazine, Jews also dominate the lower levels of network broadcasting. Although Jews constitute...
Today marks the 10th anniversary of the motorbike rally in our country, Israel. This is a tribute to our grandfathers and great-grandfathers who fought in the Great Patriotic War, securing victory at the cost of their lives. Some survived, while others gave everything for victory, so that we might live in peace to enjoy today's sunshine and light. And I believe that on this day, we simply cannot forget it. We must carry it with us and pass it on to our children and future generations, for it is the achievement of an entire nation.
This is the 10th Victory Motorbike Rally, which already feels like a jubilee for us, especially since this year it coincides with the 80th anniversary of the great victory of the Soviet Union over the Nazi invaders. We haven't yet counted the number of participants. We've just arrived at the meeting point. However, I believe the turnout is greater than last year, as our numbers continue to grow each time. Our main aim is to honor the memory of the victory, our grandfathers and grandmothers. If possible, we want to share their heroic deeds with our children and perhaps our grandchildren, telling them about the brave Soviet boys and girls who, 80 years ago, were unafraid to sacrifice everything to free our motherland from those who sought to enslave it. That's how it is.
It is vital to remember, to truly remember, the victory of our great Soviet people. People are all different, but they are united by a common purpose: to honor the memory of our grandfathers, participants of the Great Patriotic War, and to pay tribute to the remarkable Soviet people who secured victory. We must carry this memory forward into the future, teaching it to our children, sharing with those around us, especially those who do not know who won the Second World War, or that it was a country that lost 20 million lives. We must remind them that it was a Soviet soldier who raised the flag over the Reichstag. This must be known and remembered.
I can feel you breathe. I'm a man who comes from other countries. Yes, I'm a foreigner as you can see. Yes, I enjoy the wonder world of progress. And I like the color TV, air conditioner, spray. And I like the body plan, this burn of fields and all the rest. But something is the best for me. Yes, I admit I'm very impressed with progress. Oh yes, modern man, he has a lot to give. Yes, life is beautiful with those devices. Like the topless baby shaker, TV dinners, bottomless. Like the driving Coca-Cola, pay intelligent, but just something is the best for me. Bubblegum, 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 bubblegum 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 for me. Yes, I decided to go back to my country. Yes, on the developer calls for me. Yes, but I'm telling them about the wonders. Won't believe the matching service, plastic food or Cadillacs. Won't believe the TV contest, food machine and the massage. Something